The United States is claiming that it has paused its attacks on Iran, and it's claiming that it's doing this to make room for talks, for negotiations, for diplomacy. At this point, by now, everybody should be able to spot the pattern and see through this narrative. The United States is simply rearming, reorganizing, and getting ready to restart hostilities at a time of its choosing, just as it has done since 2024 in the late Biden administration, when this kinetic war against Iran directly began, when the United States, through Israel, launched missiles into Iran. And then from 2025 until now, the United States has been on and off attacking Iran, decapitating its leadership, striking at civilian and military infrastructure. And then as its stockpiles of long-range precision-guided weapons and interceptors begin to dwindle, it takes a pause, it refills those stockpiles, and then it launches strikes again. And all while it's doing all of this, and here we are, here's the headlines. The Guardian, U.S. pauses Iran attacks after Trump advised to halt bombing. Top military officials say campaign has reached its limit of effectiveness and warn of dwindling stocks of munitions. This is absolutely true, except this isn't going to stop the U.S. from continuously doing this. It will just force them to pause, rearm, reorganize, and then they can restart hostilities again in a couple of months. U.S. and Iran pause strikes for third night to make space for talks, U.S. ambassador says. This is via the BBC. And of course, we know the United States is not interested in talks. It's not looking for an off-ramp. This is how it wages war. This is how it has waged war against Iran for decades. This is how the United States dismembered and destroyed Iraq, Libya, and Syria. These very lengthy, combined strategies of outright war, proxy war, political subversion, economic sanctions, economic warfare, everything across a broad spectrum, wearing these countries down until cracks begin to form and the U.S. can exploit them and facilitate collapse. This is how the U.S. is doing it. This is what I've been warning about for years now, and that people looking at this in a very short-sighted way, looking at this particular campaign of hostilities against Iran and saying, Iran survived, the U.S. is weak and they failed. You could have said the same thing about Syria or Libya or Iraq for years and years until it no longer applied, because finally the U.S. whittled these nations down enough to where they did actually collapse. So we need to think not just in the here and now, but we have to think of what has happened in the past up until now and what is almost certainly going to happen in the future. And I warned about this. This early July article, the U.S. war on Iran continues. This was during the memorandum of understanding between negotiations, diplomacy, and the supposed signing of this memorandum of understanding that was supposed to end the war. People were hailing this as a massive victory for Iran. The United States was decisively defeated. They would be leaving the region. And I warned people emphatically, no, that was not going to happen. The U.S. is not leaving the region. They're not even done waging war on Iran. And if the United States can attack Iran at any time of its choosing, that means the United States has the initiative. And that means Iran didn't win anything. They're simply surviving. This is what I've been trying to get across to people. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to face the truth about what is actually happening in Iran versus what we wish was happening in Iran? We all wish that Iran is able, and all nations for that matter, are able to protect themselves against unwarranted aggression launched by the United States or any one of its proxies. And in West Asia, that would include Israel, but also the Persian Gulf states that have been acting as an extension of the U.S. military increasingly during this ongoing war with Iran. Why is it important to face the reality of all of this? Because this goes far beyond just a war on Iran. The U.S. is waging war on Iran as part of a much wider war on multipolarism and more specifically on China itself. They are diminishing the amount of energy being exported from not just Iran to China, but from all of West Asia to China. They've already cut off Venezuela, and now they are interdicting and disrupting maritime shipping between the Strait of Hormuz and the Strait of Malacca. They've talked about seizing the Strait of Malacca outright, and the United States continues building up not just a military footprint of its own, but it is also building up its proxies, and especially South Korea, Japan, and the Philippines being the most likely candidate for a Ukraine of Southeast Asia. And so as the United States is doing all of this, we have to zoom out and look at the big picture. They are striking at Iran, but also disrupting energy exports from West Asia deliberately. They knew this was going to happen. They know this is going to happen every time they restart hostilities. They're also outright attacking energy production, storage, and export facilities all across Russia, and to an expanding degree. They've already taken out Venezuela. Do you see the pattern here? When you zoom out, do you see what the United States is doing? They are attacking and dismembering the multipolar world by going after energy. The United States has an explicit strategy for energy dominance, and this is exactly what they are advancing. And now in this article, I warned people that the United States is conducting a controlled demolition of both West Asia's capacity to supply Asia with energy and the economies of Asia depending on this energy, causing enough damage to gradually shift dependency away from West Asia and toward the United States without triggering a unified front against the US itself and its upending of global stability. And I have warned people that if the United States wanted to, it could shut down all maritime shipping going to and from Iran virtually overnight. They would just have their warplanes strike at any ship going in and out of Iranian ports. They can disable or destroy them. They have more than enough missiles to do this. They have the ability to locate and strike at these ships. They have been locating and striking at these ships, but just in smaller numbers. They've not done it outright. Why haven't they done it outright? Because if they go all out, the whole world will see what is going on. It'll be impossible to hide it from anybody. Most people will understand this, and it will give each nation around the world the political capital to make difficult decisions now that they otherwise wouldn't be able to if the global population was convinced that this is just temporary and it's going to pass. So this is what the United States is doing. And we just look at the oil price tumbles as Iran and US pause strikes over Strait of Hormuz. We've watched the US administration and the Western media openly and continuously manipulating energy prices, manipulating headlines and manipulating energy prices to keep them down. They do not want this to run out of control. They are destroying it, but in a controlled manner to prevent panic. I've likened it to trying to catch a chicken that gets out of its enclosure. You want to get it back into the enclosure. You can run after it with a stick, and you'll simply scare it and cause it to run. And you'll be running around all day trying to catch it. Or you can be quiet, patient, put out some food right underneath maybe a small basket. And once the chicken goes to get that food, you put the basket down on top of it. Now you have the chicken in an enclosed space. You can reach in, pick them up very easily, and put them back in their enclosure. This is what the United States is essentially doing on a geopolitical level. They do not want to scare the nations of the world into creating a unified front against the United States. They want to do this nice and slowly, leveraging short-sighted self-interest without triggering any sort of sense of existential danger. And this is exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it quite successfully. So they're manipulating energy prices while all of this is happening. You have to understand, it's not just about overthrowing Iran. It is also about this wider war the US is waging on multipolarism. It is deliberately trying to remove the pillars of multipolarism, Iran, Russia, and China. But it is also trying to destroy the economic growth of all of the regions in between benefiting from multipolarism, especially the rest of Asia. Here is an article from late June. Thailand looks to invest in US LNG projects to secure supply. Why are they doing this? Because energy is being disrupted from West Asia. And it is a problem here in Thailand, where I am based. It is a problem. And this is how they're going about trying to rectify it. Now, they are also talking to Russia about importing LNG, but they cannot do it on this scale. They're talking about investing in US LNG projects. They cannot do this with Russia without ending up sanctioned by the US themselves. You have the ambassador of Russia talking about energy deals with Thailand. Russia is clearly open on their end to this. But why won't Thailand invest in LNG projects in Russia? Why are they investing in the US but not in Russia? Again, number one, sanctions. They fear sanctions. They don't want an open confrontation with the US. They've been pivoting toward China all of this time. They have been cooperating with Russia despite the ongoing war in Ukraine and the threat of sanctions from the US, but they do not want to provoke a confrontation with the United States unless it's absolutely necessary. And because the US continues its start, stop, pause, and go again war with Iran, and it's manipulating prices over time, and it's not precipitating an obviously existential crisis overnight, it is allowing them, they are allowing themselves to put nations like Thailand in this position. So what's the other reason? Why won't Thailand invest in LNG projects inside, say, Russia? Well, because the United States, through Ukraine, now here's the headline from Financial Times, Ukraine striking Russian energy infrastructure at unprecedented rate. Kiev's intensified drone campaign is spurring Russia's worst fuel crisis in decades. They're striking at these facilities. Is that the type of environment you would invest in terms of a project regarding your own energy security? And the answer is no. And they're saying they're Ukrainian drones, but we know that this isn't true. They are attributing the growing success of Ukraine's drone campaign to its ability to significantly increase production. And we know this increased production is not actually happening inside Ukraine. It's happening inside the US and Europe. They are facilitating every single aspect of this drone campaign and simply transferring these drones to Ukraine. American intelligence assistance has also played a role, aiding Kiev in charting the best paths for its drones and helping to skirt air defenses, senior Ukrainian officials told the Financial Times. And of course, this is something the New York Times has also admitted. And if you just use common sense, it is obvious that Ukraine could not carry this out without the intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities only the United States has, not Europe, not any single nation or all nations in Europe combined. Only the United States have these capabilities. Of course, Russia and China do to a certain degree, but obviously they're not sharing this information with Ukraine. So it is only the United States. And this is not something that you share with Ukraine and then Ukraine goes and they carry out these strikes. This is something that is a loop, a decision-making loop that requires expediency, and it's something that the US is almost certainly directly involved in carrying out these strikes. And so this is the reason why Thailand and any other nation interested in investing in Russia, why wouldn't they? They work with Russia on many other levels. Why wouldn't they invest in Russia in the same way they're investing in US LNG projects? Because they're worried that they'll get struck. Their investments will be all for nothing. And because the United States has two oceans between itself and all of the chaos it's creating across the Eurasian landmass, across Africa, and everywhere else, their LNG projects are not facing any sort of danger at all whatsoever. And so this is why you would invest in them. Now, again, I need to impress this upon people. I see far too many people out there saying and also repeating these claims that this is President Donald J. Trump's war on Iran. He has no plan. He has no strategy. He's acting erratically. He's acting emotionally. He's frustrated. He can't do this or that or the other thing. And he's becoming impatient. This is all nonsense. President Donald Trump and his administration are in charge of nothing except selling the policies put in front of them by corporate financier interests, selling those policies to the public or distracting the public away from those policies. The policies are, you can find these policies in policy papers exactly like this one. This is from all the way back in 2009 from the Brookings Institution, Which Path to Persia Options for a New American Strategy Toward Iran. There's a table of contents, and you can see literally every single option laid out in this paper all the way back in 2009 are verbatim being carried out right now. and have been being carried out from the Obama administration to the first Trump administration, all throughout the Biden administration, and continuing under this second Trump administration. And as you can see, there isn't just one policy, one plan to attack, undermine, and overthrow Iran. There is a multitude of options. At the very end, they talk about connecting the options, because it isn't about one option succeeding. It's about applying all of these options, creating stress across all areas, and hoping to create cracks that you could exploit and eventually collapse Iran in the process. And remember, again, as they're doing this to Iran, whether they can topple Iran or not is beside the point, because all of this is playing into a much larger war waged on multipolarism. And we can see the US doing the exact same thing to Russia, and they're doing the exact same thing to China, and they did the exact same thing to Libya and Syria and Iraq. You look at these options, it's all the same. It's all the same sort of things. Economic pressure, geopolitical and military pressure, ideological and informational measures. And you can see how these options targeting Russia also cross over into targeting Iran. Look at measure 2, increased support to the Syrian rebels. Because Russia was trying to prevent the collapse of Syria, as was Iran, the collapse of Syria, setting the stage for a US war on Iran itself, which was laid out in this paper, Which Path to Persia. And so all of these are not only very large, complex strategies with a multitude of options meant to be applied all at once and to create synergies between them, they're also being applied to many different countries with synergies meant to be created between them. And so we come back to here, and I'm going to warn people again. The United States is simply going to waste time and energy pretending to engage in diplomacy and talks and negotiations while they rearm and reorganize their forces for the next round of hostilities. This is not the type of war where if they wage it now and they don't win, then they've lost forever. This is the type of campaign that they have already waged against Iran for decades to wear it down, to prevent it from achieving its full potential, which no one can doubt has succeeded, and the same type of campaign that they have already used to wear down and topple other nations in the region. Literally next door to Iran is Iraq. Iran's close ally, Syria. This has all been done. They play the long game because the politicians in office are not the ones creating and driving these policies. They are unelected corporate financier interests behind think tanks like the Brookings Institution or the Rand Corporation, and they're always in power. You don't get to vote them in or out through elections. You only get to vote them in and out through your wallet. And most people don't understand this. They cannot connect this to politics unfolding. The political theater performed for them every single day is so enticing and so alluring. They are thrown into it head first. They want to pick a side and fight. And they are completely distracted from the corporate financier interests actually driving all of this. And both sides of the political conflict, these people think they're fighting amid and making some sort of difference within. So if you are wondering what is going to happen next, please just read the article that I already published on this topic. The US war on Iran continues. I wrote this at the end of June. It was published early July, and absolutely everything in this still applies to right now. So just the link will be in the video description below of this video. If you cannot find it on New Eastern Outlook because it's blocked in many nations across the West, go to my original blog. This is where I first began writing articles many years ago, around 2009, 2010. And the whole article is here in full, plus the video I did where I read the article and added additional information. It's all here. The links will be in the video description below of every single video. You just go to my channel, click on the video description below this video. It'll be somewhere like here. You can like and share. Here's the video description. You click on more. I put in all of the references that I cited, where you can find additional work, as well as for ways you could help support my work. The landdestroyer.blogspot.com and the NEO article links will be in this area where the references are. Regarding ways to help support my work, I do not monetize any of my social media platforms. So if ads pop up, feel free to skip them or block them because they're not helping me out at all. I deliberately don't monetize my social media platforms because I don't want ads popping up in the face of my audience. So you just feel free to skip past them. If you do want to help support my work, please do so through Buy Me a Coffee and also through Patreon. And to everyone who has been helping support my work, whether it's a one-time donation, donations month to month, or if you have no resources at all to spare, and all you can do is like, share, subscribe, post a kind comment, send a news tip, all of that is greatly appreciated. All of that together helps make this work possible. I greatly appreciate help in whatever form it takes, and as always, thank you for watching.